So we have a very special speaker from the San Francisco Public Works. I'd like to introduce our speaker, who's a civil engineer, Cristina Olea.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me tonight. It's really an honor to be here. I'm here because one of our interns this summer, Yasmin, asked, would you be willing to speak at our speaker series? And it's always something that I've enjoyed doing and something I like, going back to universities or even high schools and elementary schools to talk about the importance of majors or careers in STEM. And when I was coming up with a title for today's presentation, Rance and I were talking about it, and I sort of settled on, a career in STEM. And, what we do as engineers or scientists or mathematicians to make cities vibrant, livable, safe, and exciting to be in. The majority of people in the world live in urban environments, in cities. And so the work that scientists and engineers do on a daily basis impacts people around the world. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself first, and then I'm going to talk to you about the project that I'm managing right now, which is Better Market Street. It's estimated to be close to $1 billion. It's one of the largest infrastructure projects happening right now in San Francisco. So I think there's a lot of stuff that we can talk about, a lot of different majors or disciplines that are involved in the project, and it can sort of cover a lot of ground in one project. So, as Rant said, my name is Cristina Calderón Olea. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of California. I went to school at Santa Clara, so not far from here. I grew up in Sacramento, so just a couple of hours away. Actually, really close to UC Davis. I love Davis, it was great, but it was too close to home. So I came to the Bay Area. But Davis is great, especially for STEM majors. So it was actually my 5th grade teacher who first planted the seed of wanting to be an engineer. I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was open house at the school. We were sitting in the cafeteria and he asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, I really like math and science and I think I'm going to be an accountant. And no disrespect to accountants, but he was like, accounting? Like, why accounting? And I was like, I don't know, it sounds cool. And he was like, have you ever thought of being a civil engineer? And I didn't really know what a civil engineer was, so I was like, no, not really. And he said, well, civil engineers build buildings, bridges, and roads. They build cities. And that was all it took. It was sort of that little seed of saying, if you like math and science, you can be an engineer, and you get to work in cities. And that it stuck with me. In high school, I did a couple of summer engineering seminars at Santa Clara for high school students. And then I went in declared as civil engineering and never really looked back. I graduated from Santa Clara in 1998, last century. And I was actually an intern for the City and County of San Francisco between my junior and senior year. And I highly, highly recommend internships, especially in your major or in a STEM career, if that's what you're interested in doing. Because that internship was another key point in my life of someone or a group of people directing my career. And it was an awesome experience. It was a great environment. I was given meaningful engineering work, and given opportunities. And then it sort of just fed right into, I interviewed for a junior engineer position and was hired, and I've been there for 20 years. April 5th was my 20th anniversary with the City and County of San Francisco. So definitely try out different internships, try out different companies, private sector, public sector, explore. Now is your time to explore. The other thing I was going to say is that I was the first to graduate college in my family. My dad grew up in Mexico. I think he only had up to a 4th grade fourth grade education, and then had to go start working right away. And it's interesting because although my dad didn't have a formal education, I love math because of my dad. My dad loved doing math. He would teach me shortcuts on percentages and multiplication, even addition and subtraction, like basic math. But he was really quick at it, and he made it a game, and he would just make math fun and exciting for me. And so, that was maybe even the seed before engineering. It was like, math is fun, it's cool. He worked a lot in, like, I think he had to run the cashier for an uncle or something. And so he was quick at, money, giving people change, and being able to take percentages or adding percentages for tax and discounting for sales and stuff like that. And then my mom did some college. They got married when she was 18. She went to college and wanted to be a teacher, and ended up being a preschool teacher, but she never actually finished or got her degree. So for them, I think because of their experience, education was the most important thing for them, for their children, and also they made it a priority for them, and to make sure that we had a good education and that they could support us as much as possible, because that was sort of our inheritance, or their legacy for us was for us to go to school, to go to college, to get our degree, and be in a career that would allow us to have at least the basic needs, if not do better than, I think that was our goal, is for us to do better than they did. So I grew up bilingual. My parents both spoke Spanish and English, and so we grew up bilingual. I have two daughters now who are also bilingual, and we wanted to make sure that Spanish was a part of their growing up and part of their language. So it's also really cool to be in a STEM career, and having Spanish or a second language that you can use comes in really helpful. We do a lot of community outreach in San Francisco. We have a large population that speaks Spanish. It's been helpful there. It's just been helpful, I think, in a lot of different ways. I often do translation kind of informally, but it gets published for work, translating outreach postcards or outreach material. So I think that for any of you who are bilingual or speak multiple languages, it's something that I think is something you should be proud of, and something that you can also work into a career in STEM, even if that's not kind of the main purpose of it. So I'll talk a little bit about my career path. So after I graduated, I wanted to work in the city and county of San Francisco, but it's a civil service process. Working for a city can be kind of complicated. I can talk about that later. But there wasn't a job opening right away that I could just move into. You have to wait for positions to be approved and funding to be allocated. And so I did work for private sector, for general contractor, as a project engineer in South San Francisco for the first year out of college. It was fascinating. It was building 2 hotels in South San Francisco near Genentech. One was a 4-story wood frame, and the other was a 6-story reinforced concrete, both hotels. So it was everything we had studied for 4 years in one job site. It was really cool. I really loved it. But it was 12-hour days. The whole project team had been hired for the hotel project. And one by one, everyone sort of left. And I was like the one with seniority, and I had just graduated college. So I didn't really have any mentorship or a mentor. I didn't have anyone to show me what to do. Everyone, was replaced, and there was a whole team, but it wasn't the team that had been hired to do the project. So as soon as there was an opening with the city and county of San Francisco, I took it. I jumped jumped over and went back to working full-time for the city and county of San Francisco. I started with the Department of Parking and Traffic, working in transportation and traffic engineering. My first project was actually something I had no experience in. It was intelligent transportation systems. So installing fiber optics and creating an Ethernet network with all the traffic signals, changeable message signs, and cameras. And again, this was like 1999, 2000. well, I knew very little about fiber optics, mostly about, telephone, using fiber optics for telephone communications, but nothing about creating a network and networking traffic signals in our infrastructure. So I did that for like 8 years. It was fascinating. I learned so much there. But then I felt like, okay, this wasn't really what I went to school for. I'm not really a networker. I'm not really into networking. I want to go back to civil engineering, buildings, bridges, roads. And so then for a while, I was a pedestrian program manager for parking and traffic, and then we got rolled into the Municipal Transportation Agency. So I was there for another 13 years total, so another 5 years. And I did pedestrian program. I also did bicycle, traffic calming, all types of roadway projects, infrastructure projects. And then I sort of felt like I had done everything that I wanted to do in transportation, and I wanted to use a little bit broader civil engineering. So I transferred to the Department of Public Works, and there started to work. It really was very little change, but I started to work on streetscape projects, to manage streetscape projects that were multimodal, complete streets projects. So we have improvements for people that are walking and biking, improvements to transit, travel time, and reliability, and then roadway improvements as well. And so the teams that I work with, I came over as a project manager, and the teams that I work with involved not just civil engineers, but mechanical, electrical, structural engineers, and as well as landscape architects. We've done some research. We hired consultants who work on human factors tests and statisticians. Really multidisciplinary project teams. And it was helpful to have all of my experience in transportation and traffic signals, all of that. But then it also gave me the opportunity to grow and to work with all these other disciplines that are just as important to redesign our roadways. And our projects, like Better Market Street, will be from building face to building face. And we completely replace the sidewalks, completely replace the roadway. We put in trees and lighting, street lights, traffic signals, so that's where the electrical engineers come in. We have not only our fire hydrants, but we also have an auxiliary water supply system, which is designed by mechanical engineers. And working for the City and County of San Francisco, we don't just design, we don't just build, we also operate and maintain all of the infrastructure. So San Francisco is a little divided up. Transit and parking and traffic is handled by the Municipal Transportation Agency, MTA. Public Works does most of the design and engineering, architecture, but then we have the Public Utilities Commission that operates the sewer system and the water system, or the water lines, all of Hetch Hetchy and the reservoirs. And we design the sewer system, but they design their water system in-house. So they also hire engineers and water resource specialists, scientists throughout the PUC. And so if you have questions later about your interest and sort of where you would fit into kind of municipal government, I'm happy to answer those as well. But I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and start to talk about Better Market Street. We've been in the news a lot lately because we just, our environmental impact report was just certified by our planning commission. The project started in 2010. I'm the third project manager, and I was hired or asked to lead this project to get it to construction. Because after 9 years, we had, maybe a year, so say 17, 18 years, we had very little to show for all the years that we've been working on it. So they asked me to come on and push this project towards construction. And so we can't build anything without environmental clearance. And we're also expecting federal funding, so we had to get federal environmental clearance as well as state CEQA clearance. And so our environmental impact report is for CEQA, for our state environmental clearance. We just got that on October 10th. And then we had our project approvals. First approval was by our director at Public Works, and then the second approval was by the MTA board that approved all of the parking and traffic changes. So we hit some pretty big milestones. What's left is breaking ground. But, other than breaking ground, these were sort of the big milestones that we'd all been waiting for. And so with that, we've been in the news because of that. And has anyone heard of car-free Market Street? Yeah, that's why we were mostly in the news, is because one of our strategies to improve safety is to take off private vehicles from Market Street, 2.2 miles of Market Street from Stewart to Octavia. So like I mentioned, the project started back in 2010. From the very beginning, we've always had three main goals: improving place, improving mobility, and improving economic development. Those three goals were set by the directors of 5 city departments that are all working on Better Market Street. Public Works is the lead. MTA, because their transit and transportation has a lot of the scope of work. Then the Public Utilities Commission, San Francisco PUC, because of sewer and water. Also, they run the street lights, they operate the street lights, and they also have power as well. Like Hetchy supplies our power grid as well. So PUC is involved. The planning department, not just for environmental review, but also for urban design features and some of the initial planning of the project, conceptual design. And then the Transportation Authority, which is actually our county transportation body, they're also involved and they've helped administer contracts as well as secure grants. So the 5 departments came up with these 3 goals. A huge part of it is improving safety for people walking and biking. So safety falls under mobility. Had I written goals, I would have put safety instead of mobility. But we sort of tucked it in under mobility. But we wanted a street that's designed to reduce traffic collisions and injuries. The city has a Vision Zero policy to eliminate all traffic fatalities and severe injuries by 2024. And so Market Street is on our high injury network. It's one of the highest injury corridors in the city. And actually 5 of our highest, or 5 of our top intersections for injury collisions for people walking and biking are on Market Street. And they're intersections like 3rd Market, 5th and Market, where you just have a lot of people that not only get hit, but those collisions tend to be, or those injuries tend to be severe. So we definitely wanted to improve safety, need to improve performance and reliability of public transportation. I'll show you a map in a minute. Market Street is the spine to our transit network. 25% of our transit vehicles or transit routes run along Market or across Market. So there's a lot of buses that use Market Street. We also wanted an accessible sidewalk that identifies Market Street as the city's preeminent ceremonial street. A lot of people like to talk about Market Street like the Champs-Élysées in Paris or Grand Boulevard. And it looks very different. But the way people see Market Street, the way we use Market Street for our parades and our protests and our major events, Market Street is our important, our main ceremonial street. And then there's a lot of infrastructure that's old, it's reaching the end of its useful life, and so we needed to replace it. There's also a lot of growth happening right now in our mid-market area. So the first phase of construction is Market Street between 5th and 8th. And every block, it's only 3 blocks, but still, every block has at least 2 major private developments under construction or breaking ground right now. So there's a lot of construction, a lot of private investment in Market Street, and we wanted to integrate all of our improvements with mid-market revitalization. The top picture is of our Civic Center Plaza right in front of City Hall. This is a brand new hotel that's at 7th and Market called the Yotel. And then on the right are new residences. This is called Trinity Plaza. This is the 4th and final building, which is under construction right now, right at the corner of 8th and Market. And the other buildings are kind of tucked away behind it. So a lot of, like I said, a lot of private investment in Market Street, and we wanted our infrastructure to sort of match all of the investment that was happening in the private sector. This is all the infrastructure that's reaching the end of its useful life and needs to be replaced. This is a picture, I know it's kind of dark, but especially the track lane, the asphalt is just broken up, it's worn, it's in really poor condition. It needs to be replaced. And Better Market Street started because we needed to repave Market Street. And our director at the time said, we need to repave Market Street, now's the time to make all of those other safety improvements that we've been wanting to make. And that sort of set off this whole transformation. The sidewalks are all brick right now, and they're in a herringbone pattern, which makes it really difficult for people with mobility disabilities, or even with any disability, to try to travel along Market Street. You're hitting the joints often, it's uncomfortable, it can be painful for some people, it's hard to follow. It's all sort of one monolithic promenade. And so it's hard if you have vision disabilities to see any differences in the zones and the different sidewalk zones. So we definitely need to replace our sidewalks, bring our curb ramps up to standard, replace our street lights, sewer, water, communications. All of the traffic signals have to be replaced. They were falling apart. The track has to be replaced, the overhead wires, and the traction power that supports the buses, the buses with collectible overhead lines. So some of the key needs, there's safety problems for all, for people walking and biking as well as people driving. We also have a bike lane for a portion of the street, but it doesn't go all the way to the waterfront. It stops at 8th Street. So from 8th Street west, there's a green bike lane. It's protected by Safe-It posts, but east of 8th Street, you're riding your bicycle in the curb lane with all other transit vehicles, delivery vehicles, taxis. Taxis usually use the center lane. But you can see, that's the picture right here, is all the bicyclists squeezed along the curb while you have shuttles and cars and other vehicles in that lane. I already talked about our infrastructure. Our transit stops, this picture is kind of dark, but you can see it's so full of people. People can't walk along the boarding island. People have to walk in the street to pass others. It's so narrow, it doesn't meet standards either. They're about 5 to 6 feet wide. We're going to be widening them to 9 feet. This is a little bit more information on the collisions. We know that every year there's an average of 100 injury collisions that happen within the project corridor between Stewart and Octavia. And we know that 75% of all the collisions involve people walking and biking. So it's people who are vulnerable, people who are enjoying Market Street, and then are involved in these collisions. Throughout the project, we've had a lot of community engagement, and I want to stress for people who are in STEM careers, community outreach is really important. And it's something that we don't necessarily do a lot of in school, but it's important to get input from your stakeholders. And one of the challenges is identifying who are your stakeholders. Is it just the people that work there, or just the people that live on the street? No, it's sort of people who use the street. We always have a hard time reaching out to people who drive, because we can catch people that are walking and biking kind of on the street, but it's hard to really communicate with people that are driving, or to get a lot of people to attend our meetings, especially people with families. It's always hard to get moms and dads to come to our meetings because they're busy with their family. And so we try to have meetings at different times of the day, different days of the week. I was at a community meeting for the Civic Center Public Realm Plan, and they had activities for children during meetings so that if a parent brought their child to the meeting, they had something to do while the parent could look around and see the materials, the outreach materials. So we've done a lot of, we've had 5 rounds of workshops, including open houses. This is a picture of our last open house in June at the Strand Theater. We've held hundreds of stakeholder meetings. We have an active community working group. Some projects call it a Citizens Advisory Committee, but we've tried to get a good cross-section of stakeholders to meet every other month to provide guidance on the project. We have a web map or an app on our website where you can test different routes that you would take right now versus after our project when we remove private vehicles. Our website, we try to keep up to date with everything that we're doing. And then we've done surveys and mailings, posters, I talk about multilingual outreach, and then we've done tabling at community events. So this is our proposed project. Market Street right now is 2 lanes in each direction, and we're not changing that, we're leaving 2 lanes. But the center lanes are going to be Muni only. And that means city, municipal railway buses only, and the F line. Any other transit agency, Amtrak uses Market Street. AC Transit uses Market Street. They'll be in the curb lane, in this roadway here. It's labeled roadway. Taxis will be in that lane, delivery vehicles, and paratransit. Emergency vehicles can use any lane. I talked about the center boarding islands. Here's a center boarding island that goes between the lanes. We're widening them to 9 feet, and then we're also making them long enough that they can fit 2 or 3 buses in a row, or one behind the other. One of the biggest changes, though, is that we're providing or building a sidewalk level bikeway. So I mentioned bikes right now for the majority of the corridor are riding in that curb lane. They're in there with all the shuttle buses and transit vehicles and delivery vehicles. And so we didn't really have the room, the right of way, to provide a separation or a buffer. And so the decision was to make it sidewalk level. So our standard curb height is 6 inches, and we're just like the sidewalk, will designate an area for bicycles. We're actually, the way we make room for that, we are widening the sidewalk by 2 feet on each side, or narrowing the roadway by 2 feet on each side. And then we're repurposing the first 12 feet of sidewalk. And I have another slide that shows that in more detail. But we're providing a furniture zone, or what we're calling a street light zone, where we can put all the street furniture, including trees and street lights. But also provide a space for activation or programming. And that's sort of another whole area where we can work with people from the Department of Public Health, or our Office of Economic and Workforce Development, or the Mayor's Office, to, once we have this brand new, beautiful street, to help us program it and activate space, so that it doesn't deteriorate or attract, the activities, illegal activities that we want to sort of curb. And then still leaving the pedestrian walkway on each side, and then a frontage zone next to the buildings, which is for tables and chairs, or for restaurants to have tables and chairs out on the sidewalk. I should say the full right-of-way from building face to building face is 120 feet wide. It's one of our widest streets in San Francisco. So here's how we break up the sidewalk. I mentioned widening the sidewalk by 2 feet, but repurposing the first 12 feet. So 4-foot buffer, 8-foot bikeway. This buffer zone has a detectable separation. It's kind of like truncated domes at curb ramps, but it's going to be a different geometry. That delineator, that bikeway separation, is meant to communicate to people that are blind or low vision that they are, if they cross that strip, they're entering the bikeway. But it's also meant to discourage bicyclists from riding on the sidewalk. So it plays a very important role in the design of our street. And then the furnishing zone, which varies, I think, between 6 and 9 feet wide. Our pedestrian throughway is typically 10 feet wide, and our frontage zone is 5 to 6 feet. All right, I'll talk a little bit about the urban design. I talked about how we work with landscape architects. The landscape architects provide our tree selection. They determine the size of the tree wells. One of our goals is to have a thriving urban forest. And so this is an important part of our project. Right now, sort of the standard tree on market is the Platanus, which is a sycamore London plane tree. It hasn't done really well. Some of the trees they don't look healthy. Some of them have grown crooked. They don't look very healthy. There's a lot of wind along Market Street. It's a very windy corridor. So we're looking for a variety of trees that can withstand the wind and will help create this thriving urban forest. So we're looking at cork trees, elms, and I think this is a Brisbane box. And the idea is the London plane tree will be kind of all throughout the corridor, and then we'll put these other trees at the intersections or at key access points to add variety and help the overall health of the trees. Okay, I talk about the brick and how the brick wasn't accessible. The city now has a standard paving palette that recommends, if you want to use pavers for the sidewalk instead of concrete, that you use larger pavers, in a linear pattern. And so in the walkway here, we'll be using pavers that are 8 inches by 24 inches, as opposed to a small brick. And then in the furnishing zone and frontage zone, and I think in the buffer, we're using smaller pavers that are 4 inches by 12 inches. So what this means is you don't have joints as closely spaced together as brick. And then you also, without the herringbone pattern, you're sort of spacing out how often people hit a joint. And the stacked pattern, sort of aligned, also helps kind of guide people along the sidewalk. And we really wanted to distinguish and differentiate among the different zones. We want people to know this is where you walk, this is where you hang out, that's the bikeway. Just make it very clear from a design perspective. We talk a lot about universal design, which if you come up with a great design that works for everyone, you don't have to worry about accessibility, or you don't have to worry about parents with strollers, or you don't have to, no one group stands out. Like we're trying to have this universal design that everyone can use and is comfortable. We've also spent a lot of time looking at the street furniture, the streetscape elements. We work with BART. This is their new canopy design. There's 2 locations in San Francisco that have this canopy, but they're going to be on every entrance at BART Muni stations. So all the entrances at Embarcadero, Montgomery, Powell, Civic Center will all have these canopies. And then our bus shelters have this seismic wave on top. And the whole look or aesthetic that we're going for on Market Street, remember it's our preeminent street, we want to make it stand out. We want it to sort of facilitate and help and accentuate all of our parades and protests and events. Has this look of, the finishes are all stainless steel or galvanized steel. The pavers are all gray. These are the new toilets. If you've ever used one of the J.C. Decode toilets, they're not portable, but they're the public toilets around San Francisco. They look very Parisian and green. They're more like historic looking. They have changed their design to this sleek silver or steel toilet. So this is actually the door. It opens up, and there's a self-cleaning toilet inside. And so those will start to be installed probably in the next 18 months to 2 years throughout the city. Seating along Market Street has been removed over the years because people were loitering or people were hanging out there for too long, and it was people that were less desirable. So all the seating has been removed, and our goal is to bring back some seating to try to make it aesthetic, comfortable, but not too comfortable that you can stay there for too long. There's quite a balancing act there. And then these are something new that we're going to try out. They're leaning rails. When you're on your bicycle, if you hit a red light, you can lean either a foot or a hand on the rails and take a break. Our loading zones are also going to be at sidewalk level. They're sort of like loading bays, which we have now, but the difference is they're going to be at sidewalk level. And the bicycle, also at sidewalk level, will ride on the outside of the loading zone. So the delivery vehicles will be in the curb lane. There's this rolled curb that they can use to get up and over into the loading zone, and then bikes will have to ride around them. I have a couple of slides about the transit improvements, if anyone is really into transit operations. The center lane will be for the F line, which is our historic streetcar, the 9 and the 9R, which goes down Potrero into the Mission and Bayview, and then the 5 and the 5R, which runs all the way out to the ocean along Fulton. And then it will have what we call rapid stop spacing, which means it stops less frequently, on average about 1,200 or 1,500 feet between stops. And so the idea is there's less stops, it'll move quicker, there's less delay. Those are our rapid lines. And they will only stop at the Barton Muni stations. And then all the local lines, the 6 and the 7 go to Haight, the 21 and 31 go out to Richmond, along with the 38 and the 2. Those will all be in the curb lane, and they'll stop. These are the stops up here. They'll stop much more frequently along the blue line versus the red line in the center. There's one place where we're adding new track, and that's for the F loop. So along McAllister and Charles J. Brenham, it's new track that the F-line streetcar can use. So if they're coming from, the F-line streetcar runs from Fisherman's Wharf all the way to the Castro. I think it's like over 3 miles from end to end. So it's a long, slow route. And the majority of our ridership is along Fisherman's Wharf, the waterfront, all the way to Powell. And then ridership really drops. So we were looking for a place where we could turn the trains around to get back out. And these are old historic trains. They don't really turn easily. They need to loop around. There's only one. Some of the trains you can drive from the front to the back, but most of the trains you can only drive from the front. So we needed a place to do a loop, and so we're doing it around McAllister and Charles J. Brenham, installing this new track. It means that, and we want to do that without decreasing the service to the Castro, because it's really popular. So headways right now are every 10 minutes from Fisherman's Wharf to Castro. When we add this loop, it means that we can reduce the time down to 5-minute frequencies from Fisherman's Wharf to the loop. So it's like every other car will turn around in the loop during peak hours for the F line and head back and service Fisherman's Wharf and the waterfront. This is the whole car-free Market Street. This has been sort of what everyone likes to talk about and one of the most controversial aspects of the project. I mentioned safety, Vision Zero, all the collisions that are on Market Street. We sort of needed something dramatic to try to change the behavior to reduce collisions on Market Street. So in 2015, the MTA implemented Safer Market Street, which was a turn restrictions between 3rd and 8th Streets. And what we're doing with Better Market Street is we're going to extend those turn restrictions. So you'll still be able to drive across Market Street. Like if you're on Hayes, you'll still be able to drop down, or actually, it's the other way. If you're on 9th, you'll still be able to cross Market to take Hayes, or 7th is the other route from the freeway, headed north. But you'll no longer be able to turn onto Market Street. So if you're on 9th and you want to go down Market, you won't be able to do that, or from 7th. So really, this whole area from Stewart to Franklin becomes car-free. And, we've already, like I said, we've already restricted vehicles between 3rd and 8th. this extends it, private vehicles include Uber and Lyft. So if you're taking a taxi is defined in our city charter as transit. And that's in our transit first policy, which is another key city policy that guides our project. Transit first says that we should do everything we can as a city to prioritize transit. Transit includes taxis, and they also in the transit first policy say that we need to improve alternative modes of transportation, so walking and biking. And this sort of this strategy is really pushing transit first, sort of to the next level. We don't have a lot of car-free streets in San Francisco. We do Sunday streets where we'll close a street or an area of the city on a Sunday, but this is our main. We're saying it's our main roadway, but we're not allowing private vehicles. So there's been a lot of questions around that, and a lot of questions about why taxis and not Uber and Lyft. But like I said, taxis are considered transit in San Francisco, Uber and Lyft are considered private vehicles. There's also a few changes to help support the car-free area. We're making one block of Jones two-way, we're making 2 blocks of Ellis one-way. And it's again to help circulation and help sort of mitigate the impacts of the car-free area. There are 2 block faces that will be allowed, where private vehicles will be allowed. It's from 11th to 10th, and from Drum to Stewart. And that again is for circulation. Most places, like 2nd Street, we have an alley where we can reroute traffic, but at Spear and at 11th, we didn't have Stevenson to use instead of Market. So there's sort of two small exceptions, but otherwise there's no private vehicles in this area. Okay, so really quickly, I've talked about all the growth in mid-market. Another area that's exploding right now is called the Hub. And the Hub is the intersection of Market and Van Ness. 3 out of the 4 corners at Market and Van Ness are going to have major development. At the southwest corner, this used to be the Honda dealership. It's 10 South Van Ness, it's going to be demolished, and it's going to be like a 50-story building. Up here, it's One Oak. It's like a donut shop in a parking lot. Donut shop's coming down. It's going to be a 50-story building. One of our offices is here at 30 Van Ness. There's like a Walgreens on the ground floor. That's going to be demoed. We're moving out. It's going to be demoed, and it's going to be like a 40 or 50-story building. So we have thousands of people coming in to live right around Market and Van Ness, and there's already new buildings, kind of in all directions, and more that are under construction. So when we had community outreach about the Hub, everyone kept saying, we need to do more, we need to do more. We can't have just 2 lanes in each direction, we need wider sidewalks, we need wider bike lanes. A lot of these developments, the planning department has restricted the number of parking spaces that are even allowed in the building. So even though it's a 40 or 50-story building, I think there's less than 1 space per unit. It's like 0.6 or 0.7 is what is being provided. So these people are going to move here, and a lot of them aren't going to have cars. They're going to be dependent on transit, walking and biking, and then possibly Uber and Lyft as well. So we've been trying to figure out, how are we going to maintain access for all these new people, but improve safety at the same time. And so in this area, we're actually narrowing the roadway to 1 lane in each direction and restricting all right turns at the intersection of Market and Van Ness. And there's sort of additional vehicle restrictions. We wouldn't allow delivery vehicles in this area either. Okay, so our project schedule, projects take longer than you ever imagined. I mentioned the project started in 2010. So it's already been 8 or 9 years. 9 years. So we're right here. We just got our certification of the EIR, project approvals. We're now looking at doing a quick build, which is the car-free area, community-only lanes, and some painted safety zones. We're going to do a pilot project of the sidewalk level bikeway. And then we'll advertise the first phase of construction in 2020. We'll either break ground at the end of 2020 or early 2021. And that's Market Street between 5th and 8th. This is just a list of all of our approvals, and I've talked about all of them. This is the quick build program that I mentioned, having the car-free zone and adding 100 new loading zones on the cross streets. That's both passenger loading and commercial loading. The Muni-only lane, right now it's taxis and buses, but it will be just Muni. And then the painted safety zones. And this is the quick build implementation. The car-free area will actually stop at Van Ness in the westbound direction, and it'll start at 10th in the eastbound direction. This is the area where we're doing the pilot. We did a raised cycle track pilot here a couple of years ago. We tested 2 inches higher than the roadway and 4 inches higher than the roadway. And what we found were people were still parking on it. So we had to add this, the Safe It post. And then that kind of works, but for Better Market Street, the proposal was let's do a sidewalk level bikeway. So we're going to sort of repurpose this area for a sidewalk level bikeway. We're going to remove, it's testing our design. We'll remove all the existing granite curb and install it at the new curb line. We're going to lift this up 6 inches. We're going to put in that detectable bikeway separation, and then we're going to put in all our new pavers. Everyone's worried about the impact of businesses during construction, and so we are required to put together a construction mitigation plan that provides services for businesses impacted by construction. That includes marketing, providing additional signage. One of my favorite taglines that we had on one of our projects was, looking good is hard work. It was for the Castro. We did a major streetscape project. And it was something along the lines of, looking good is hard work. Because it was a complete redesign, reconstruction of Castro Street, from building face to building face, widening the sidewalks. We know it's going to be difficult and challenging for people who needed to be in the area, but in the end, it was a beautiful streetscape. We also want to have incentives for the contractor to finish early. We estimate that construction in those 3 blocks is going to take 2 years, and so we want to provide incentives for them to finish work early if they can. We'll have a public office, hopefully within the project corridor. That's something I work on in my free time. And then having a transit service plan that minimizes the impact to our transit riders. And that's it. That's Better Market Street in a nutshell. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have, either about STEM in general or about, I think I have some slides about the funding. That was something I never learned about in school. Like, you never learn about how do you fund your projects. It's really hard, especially expensive projects. We're dependent on getting federal, state, and regional grants. Our estimate at 10% design was $604 million, but when you throw in all of the state of good repair, all of the scope of work, we think it's probably going to be closer to $1 billion. This is the funding we've gotten out of the $604 million. We've so far gotten $144 million. That's why we're breaking it up into phases. We have $100 million for construction of phase 1A. It's probably going to be closer to 175. So we're still looking for funding. And these are all the other funding sources at the federal, state, regional, and even local level. So you don't realize until you're kind of working on these projects how politics and like Regional Measure 3, I think it was a ballot measure that we voted on in the Bay Area to increase bridge tolls. And this tax on TNCs is going into, we're voting on it in November, whether or not to tax TNCs and then use that money back for our roadway projects or infrastructure projects and for transit. So happy to answer any questions that you have.
So I know that you guys are trying to transition people to more public transit. There's inevitably going to be people that don't want to use it. Are you guys foreseeing down the line a plan for parking infrastructure somewhere away? Or are you just kind of like, well, this is the new reality?
It's interesting. San Francisco has not built many parking lots.
Right.
And when I used to work in ITS and intelligent transportation systems, everything we talked about is about making the streets more efficient, more effective, and being able to get more throughput. And it was like, well, where do people park? And we just, as a city, we haven't built parking lots. I mentioned the new buildings don't provide even one-to-one.
Right.
So we've looked at, I talked about providing for circulation. So we've tried to address how people move along and through or around Market Street, but we haven't, and we've looked at loading, commercial loading and passenger loading, but we haven't really looked at, where do you park?
Right.
We're a one-car family, so we have a one-car garage.
Yeah.
Parking is a challenge in San Francisco, and I think in a lot of our cities. A lot of families have more than one car, and you have to sort of plan for that or adjust to it. So
public, the reason I'm asking is because once this is done, this is going to be, like you said, a new tourist attraction. So public works isn't putting anything in the pipeline for it.
not for parking, no. Saw another hand. Is there someone else got a question? Oh, in the back.
Yeah. In which order do you schedule the construction process?
Sorry, what was that?
In which order do you schedule the construction process? Like the grant diagram or chrono program? Or
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
when you start with the construction, you have a grant program.
Oh, grants.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or you have a chrono program, and so how do you project that?
How do you project the costs and the grants?
No, the grant diagram. How do you decide the time? How you
For the schedule or for the design?
No, for the project, not for the design. When you will start, you will have a timeline. So you will fix. You will decide how much time I need to remove the concrete or I don't know. I don't know what is in the.
You're asking how do we build our schedule?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have such a big scope of work. What we're assuming for our construction phasing is that we're going to do all the utility work on the north side of the street first, and we'll have traffic running on the south side, and then we're going to flip it. We'll do the utility construction on the south side and have traffic running on the north side. Then we have to replace all our track. So we'll take the center of the roadway, and we'll replace the track, replace spark rates, and have traffic running on either side. And there may be times when we can only provide one vehicle lane total. And then we'll do the sidewalks, all the sidewalk area, the bikeway, and the last thing that always happens is the roadway gets repaved and the trees are planted. Those are kind of the last things that happen. So each project will have its sequencing plan and construction plan. Right now we're like at 2.5 years, and we really need to get it down to 2 to minimize the impact to the businesses. But it's something that we work with on a team. That reminds me that we also have a whole construction management team, which is another important major and career that we need to include in our projects. Nancy, you have a question?
Yeah, so you guys got a picture of the hub where they're going to be building, these floors. So this is going to be housing, but is it going to be, it's housing, who's supposed to, going to be living in the housing? Who's the part of the population they want in the housing?
So what I hear about housing is that San Francisco is behind on building housing. And so we're trying to build more, we're trying to catch up and build more housing. There's certainly a portion of the housing that will be affordable housing or below market rate. I've heard most of these buildings are going to be rental. They'll be apartments, not condos. So it's rental units, trying to get some affordable housing in there. Twitter's on Market Street. There's a whole Twitter tax to try to get more tech companies to come in, so like Dolby and Twitter and Zendesk. And so I think a lot of their employees could work there, could live there as well. But we have a lot of Google buses and Genentech buses, so people live in the city and then commute outside of the city for work. So I think it's a variety of people that will live and work there. In mid-market, and even around the hub, we have some SROs, single residency occupancy buildings, and that will be, those people will be incorporated into some of the new buildings. So it's a mix.
Is there plans to make the transportation more carbon neutral, or fuels and buses?
I think all of our buses are either electric or clean. There might have been a picture in one of my slides. They're all clean fuels now, so the transit fleet is pretty clean at this point. We have the Department of the Environment, which does a lot of our incentives for getting hybrid vehicles or electric vehicles. Our city fleet is primarily electric or hybrid. So as a city, we've moved to greener vehicles. Yes.
What's your opinion and some of the complications you're foreseeing with the new navigation center that they're coming up at the same time?
It's really interesting. That was something that Public Works took on. It's not a typical Public Works department project.
Right.
So I don't know if you know what the navigation centers are. It's a new type of homeless shelter. And before I had kids, one of the things that I did was I was on the board of directors for a homeless shelter in San Francisco. And so it was really interesting. I used to volunteer a lot of time at the homeless shelter. And there was a lot of people that didn't like living in shelters because they couldn't bring all their belongings. They couldn't travel with their friends. The shelter that I volunteered at, men were on one floor, women were on another. So if you were a couple, you couldn't be together. And there were just a lot of limitations that homeless shelters, traditional homeless shelters didn't address. And then this new idea came in of having a navigation center. And Public Works got involved because we designed the first navigation center. Our architects went in and our operations crews, the architects designed it, our crews built it. It was meant to be quick build, implement this navigation center and get people in right away. And now it's grown. I've lost track of how many we've opened. We're opening some on Caltrans property. And the model is completely different. It's a whole group of people, a whole group of friends who move in together. There's a lot of storage space. You can bring your pets. And those were all things that traditional homeless shelters didn't have. And so I think the navigation centers are great. We still have a lot of homeless people in San Francisco. So clearly it's not the only solution, or it by itself is not going to solve homelessness. I think we're really struggling in San Francisco to try to address homelessness, but there's no one solution. And I think, we've tried to provide services. Years ago we had Care Not Cash. There have been all these initiatives. Navigation centers are sort of the latest strategy, and we're constantly looking for new ways and trying to address homelessness. But it's an ongoing challenge. Yes.
You mentioned your education. Is that you get credit for you too, or?
I didn't. I always thought, when I graduated after 4 years in Santa Clara, I had my bachelor's of science in civil engineering. And I didn't know if I was going to go into structural or transportation, or I thought I wanted to be an environmental lawyer. I didn't know where I was going to go, and I didn't want to commit to graduate school for any one specialty. And I always thought, I'm going to work for a little bit and I'll go back. If you're interested in graduate school, you should just go right away. don't delay, because once you start working, it's so hard to go back. But engineering is one career path where you don't necessarily need to go to graduate school to be an engineer. For civil engineering, to get your license, if you go to graduate school, so to get your engineer's license, the professional engineer, you need 6 years of experience. 4 years is considered your undergraduate. You can use 4 years for your undergraduate degree, and then 1 year for graduate school and 1 year of experience. If you don't go to graduate school, then you need 2 years of experience. And so my other suggestion to everyone is, if you're going into engineering, take your engineering training test as soon as possible. You can do it, your junior or senior year. Get that out of the way, and then take your professional engineer's exam as soon as possible. So graduate school would have only counted, a lot of programs are 2 years or 2.5 years. You only get 1 year credit towards your PE, and then you can work and get most of your experience will happen on the job. So I decided to take the path of after graduating undergraduate, I went to work, and by far 99% of what I've learned has been on the job. But school is super important as well. Yes.
Which skill do you consider the most important to cover your position?
Which what?
Which skill?
Skill. Oh.
Like problem solving, leadership, or
I think teamwork.
organization?
I think teamwork is so important, and communication. Communication is an important part of it. Yeah. It is no fun working with people that are not good team players. Today, I spent a large part of the meeting comparing our project to like a football game, or actually a soccer. And I was like, we're like a soccer team, and Public Works is the captain, and the other departments are important players, they're important team members, but it doesn't mean you can call out a 12th player. You can't have 2 goalies. You can't have people duplicating efforts. And you can't have like your defense calling out a new play if that wasn't the agreement. Right, exactly. And so, I was like, do you guys play baseball or football? Like, I need an analogy here because we were having problems. And so it's like, and these are people that are, good engineers. They're good at their job. They have 20 years of experience. Like, it's not the experience that is a problem. It's communications, it's teamwork, it's, don't be upset that you're not starting, or don't be upset that you're not the goalie. I need you to play defense right now. And so, for me, it's like, be a good team player, speak openly, help each other out. These are complicated projects. Like, engineers, scientists work on complex, complicated projects, and we learn so much from each other. My daughter's in 3rd grade, she's learning scientific method, and a big part of it in 3rd grade is share your results with others, work on a team, share your results. You learn from what other people are doing. You don't look at it like competition, look at it as, you're helping each other learn or study different things. And it was so neat that in 3rd grade they were already talking about this, and it's like, that's so important. It's true. So, good question. Yeah.
You guys hiring?
What?
I said, are you guys hiring?
Oh, yeah, we're always hiring. I was gonna say, so trying to work for the city is a little tiring, because it's sort of like a black hole, right? You submit your application. So for engineers, I know the engineering path really well. So what I like about engineering is it's very clear for most cities. You're entry-level engineer, you come in, you don't have to have your EIT. Usually to go to the 2nd level, you need your EIT. To get to your 3rd level, you need your PE. And it's also kind of like a pyramid. So our entry level is junior engineer, and you can apply when you're in school. Even without your degree, you'll have like a waiver for degree And when you get your degree, then you're like full-fledged on the list. But junior engineer is the position that you would look for. You can sign up on our website to be notified when there's job openings. If you're still in school, you can sign up to be an intern. And I mentioned Yasmin Ochoa Sanchez? Ochoa, yeah. So if you know her, she was an intern with San Francisco Public Works last year. The internship program, I think flyers come out like in November, and I can send them to Rance. Yasmin got it, and she applied, and we hired her for the summer. So that's sort of like, when you're in school, you can come in as an intern. You're working as an intern while you're in school, and then you can apply for a junior engineer. Get on the list. You're notified when there's job openings. You can apply for that specific opening, and then they evaluate your application, and you might be invited to interview, and then you have to wait to hear how you did. But don't lose courage. It can be a long process. Like I said, I went and worked in the private sector for a little bit, but interview, try it out, make sure you're on the list though.
I have another question. What was the most dangerous or complex or unexpected that happened year for you?
Most unexpected?
Yeah, like in the construction field, something can happen every time. You never know what, but something can happen. And it can be because you find something that is not in the register, or for example, I remember when I was in LA and I started doing this mission project, we found a pipe and we cut the pipe with excavator. And because when we called at the company, we asked, hey, we have to make a hole there.
Yeah, we started
we
the
had
fire
something
once. Not us, but on the project.
One didn't do a good job.
I can't remember. It was I think it was the PUC, and they were moving like a water valve. I don't know, there was a spark, and there was a small fire. No one got hurt. There was a small fire. That was on Caraval out near 48th, I think. So we called that. Let's see. This is construction. It's heavy construction. There was someone who died on a job site. I think there was like a new person. This also wasn't my project, but there was a new person driving the machine who wasn't licensed to operate that machine, and somehow it jumped and it hit an employee, and that person died. Right now we're working on Venice bus rapid transit. We're having all sorts of problems with unidentified utilities, and that's probably the biggest risk. Is you don't know what's underground.
Yeah.
You do your best. You call 811. They USA it. You get as-built drawings. You put together a utility composite, but utility composites don't tell you depth. They tell you approximate location.
Yeah.
Market Street is crazy. One of my other projects was 2nd Street in Soma. 2nd Street dead ends at the ballpark. It runs from Market to the ballpark. And it's like spaghetti with all the utilities. And 2nd Street was totally excavated for all of the fiber optic companies and telecommunications. So there's conduits upon conduits upon conduits. Some are abandoned, some are, we don't know who owns them, where they came from. We don't know if they're live or abandoned.
City's been rebuilt how many times?
Hundreds. It's like this is like Market Street's once in a generation, but it's already been. I can at least name this is at least the 4th. Reconstruction of Market Street.
How much deeper are you going to go?
How deep?
How much deep? Yeah, 1 meter. Sorry.
No, some of the excavation is like 15 feet deep. Sewer lines are the deepest.
Yeah.
Under Market Street we have BART and Uni. So in those locations, I think we only have like 7 feet of depth. I have a great slide on infrastructure that I didn't put in here today. But that's interesting because you can see the BART and Uni tunnels, and then how much cover we have. But that's where there's stations. Outside of where we have stations.
Yeah, because you're going to recreate a new pipe connection for the clean water.
Right.
For the
Yeah,
dark
new water lines. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think typically sewer's the deepest. We have a combined system, so it treats rainwater as well as dirty water. But that's usually, I think it's usually between 6 and 8 feet down. All of our infrastructure needs to be a minimum of 2 feet down. We need 2 feet of cover. And then below that, we have water. Water, I think, is usually like 4 feet deep, and then sewer is like 6 to 8.
Which one?
Water is 4,
4?
and then sewer is the deepest.
Sewer is a dark water? No, what is sewer?
Dirty, yeah, dirty,
Okay,
sewer is
black
dirty
water.
water, but we have a combined system, so it treats rainwater as well. All of our catch basins lead to our sewer system.
Do you have 2 different type of pipe? Isn't
For fresh water, our fresh water and then our sewer.
okay.
Yeah, they're separate. But, yeah, one of my projects, we installed earthquake resistant ductile iron pipe. It came from Japan. What's different about earthquake resistant pipe are the joints. So you have special joints that can allow for more movement. I don't remember how deep that was, so that was like the coolest pipe I've installed.
Like we like a distributor.
Yeah.
Like that.
In the joint. It's all about how you connect
It's,
and build those joints. Anything else?
You know, anyone that works in public works that doesn't have a
One person, but she's in administration.
Do you know any people that have like construction management over engineering?
Schools like Cal Poly have construction management degrees, and so yeah, we've hired I think a couple of people who have construction management degrees.
East Bay also has a program for construction
That's
management.
what I'm going
Yeah.
Do they
So-
prefer engineering, or what's like the preference?
For construction management, or
For just working in public works or in the private sector,
so public works has a pretty wide variety, but the engineering track, junior engineer, you have to have your bachelor's. So project manager, you have to have, I think like 5 or 10 years of experience in engineering, architecture, or landscape architecture, I think is what they say. But read the minimum qualifications in the job descriptions, because I feel like at some point, like if you have 6 years, I don't know what the number is, but like 5 years, or you meet the minimum, I think some of our computer-aided drafting or CAD technicians, you don't necessarily need to have a bachelor's degree. And I think that can be your foot in the door. But you can do, and some of our technicians, we have a materials testing lab. So some of those, you may be able to use experience as an alternative to a bachelor's degree. But it's all in our, when you go to our website, sfdhr.org, Department of Human Resources, you can look up job classifications, and then you click on it, and it gives you all the minimum qualifications and a very generic job description. But the minimum quals is what you want to look at. And there, like I said, there's sort of these engineering technicians or engineering assistants that you don't need a bachelor's for.
Question. What is for you the best approach for a new project, for a new job? What is the best way to start with a new project?
The best way to start is to have a plan. I do more short-term plans. Our planning phase is usually a year, is what I like to do. And we have like 3 community meetings, 3 or 4 community meetings, and at the end of it we have like a conceptual design, which is considered like 10% design. So that's usually how we start. We come up with, we either get funding or the community really pushes us to initiate a project. And then we get our team together, engineers, landscape architects, the planners from the planning department, some people from MTA. So you put your team together, then you come up with your sort of overall plan. Sometimes we have to start it without funding, so then we're looking at how can we fund this project, and that's part of your initial discussion. Once you get money for your planning phase, then you really, that's when you start going out into the community and say, what are we trying to fix? Oftentimes, projects start because people want to traffic calm their street, or there have been a lot of collisions and they want to improve safety.
Someone doesn't want change, nothing. Sometimes, some people.
Right, some people don't like change.
Yeah.
Some people, one of my projects was Potrero, and right by General Hospital, 21st to 25th. And there's collisions, there's severe injury collisions, the street needed to be repaved, the street lighting was bad, it was old. And we met with a community group, and they were like, we don't want your project. Like, we're facing gentrification, we're getting pushed out of our homes, all these like tech people are moving in, they get picked up on the bus and they go away, and they just come back at night, and they're driving up all our prices. Like, we don't want your project, it's just gonna make it worse. And we were like, it's like heartbreaking. It's like, wait, but you're saying there's no problem? Like, there's collisions, there's injuries, the street looks bad, it needs to be repaved. And they went, okay, well, you can pave, but that's it. Like, pave our street and get out. And we were like, but there's still a lot of crashes, transit's slow, like, can't we do other things to make Potrero better? And so, we ended up having to have extra meetings. I actually haven't heard anything. The project's done now. I haven't heard anything. I'd love to go back and see what they thought. We did, the most controversial thing is we had to remove parking because we put in a transit-only lane for a portion of it. I've heard positive feedback about the bus line, the 9 and the 9R. People have said that it runs faster, and like one person tracks their commute and said, my commute has reduced by so many minutes with the new transit-only lane. And so we've gotten positive feedback. I don't know from the residents what they think. Most people really like the projects when they're done, because it does. It improves your street. Who doesn't like trees and new sidewalks and new paving? Our sign used to be future home of smooth pavement for our repaving projects. It's like, people like those improvements. But, there is that fear of gentrification, property values going up, getting beyond our reach. It's tough.
All right, well, great questions. 20 minutes over time. Give you a round of applause.